An inexperienced interdimensional being is thrust into the chaotic lives of a group of reckless young adults who survived the globally cataclysmic changes of the Great Year. You are now experiencing the Renpet phenomenon.
Oh yeah. Welcome to Ralph Reads, brought to you by TURN, the United Ronin Networks. My name is Ralph Anthony Garcia, also known as R4. The legal, the loyal, the regal, the royal, Ronin Ralph, your master of ceremonies. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tune in to TURN, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. On today's edition of Ralph Reads, the 9th presentation of Midnight, a Gangster love story, penned by the powerful prominence of pro-black and beautiful Sister Souljah. Light 'em up, chug 'em down. Listen to the sound as we let the reading commence. Chapter 38. On a sidewalk on Main Street, the main road that runs through Jackson Heights, Queens, I picked up a girl's bicycle from a sidewalk sale for $40. I would gift it to Naja to make up for stealing her time on Family Day to deal with Akemi. I would take her outside for a while and teach her to ride. Bergdorf f***ing Goodman, Conflict said when I came through the block with the shopping bag from Akemi and pushing Naja's small bike. Look at this motherfucker, he said to his man who was sitting on a chain as Conflict stood next to him, chewing on a toothpick. I kept it moving at my same pace. I heard you come through here last night with some sexy Chinese bitch. Now that's something we could split 2 ways, he called out behind me. Let me find out you got something moving around here and ain't telling me, he said. I was up the walkway on my way past Daquan's benches and into the building. I rescheduled the house appointments till first thing in the morning. Uma and I practiced the 100 questions and answers for our citizenship papers. We plan to cram and take the test and recite the words at City Hall next week. Around 4 o'clock, when the shifts changed on the block and that been standing there all day, replaced by a next set of familiar to stand in their exact same spots. I took my sister downstairs and taught her how to ride her bicycle. She was thrilled. She almost never got to play on our block unless I was downstairs to watch her. For the first time, she played with 2 other little girls who were out there on their own, ready and willing to make friends so they could get a ride. I let her share with them as long as they all stayed within my eyesight. They took it. It was better than nothing. Standing still on the block always had its price. I saw Heavenly Paradise and a couple of her friends coming out the lobby of the other building. Wearing her spring colors and everything brand new, she left the other 2 girls waiting, threw on her mean walk, and headed over towards me.
I feel like I haven't seen you in months,
she said.
Where you been?
Working, I answered with one word.
You got something for me?
She asked. Nothing, I replied.
Matter of fact, I did see you the other night, right?
She asked. I don't know, I told her.
Well, I know,
she said coyly.
You know where I stay, right over there in apartment AF. You should come see me,
she said, shifting her stance to give me a closer look while I was looking at Conflict pulling up, double parking, and looking at us. You better go, I told her.
Oh, I got him. Don't ever worry about that. But come through with my gold chain. He bought it from me, and he's been asking about it. If I get a chance to see you, I'll tell him I lost it, and you can keep it. You buy me another one. If I don't see you,
she said, waving to Naja as she tried to balance herself on her new bike. Now Conflict was inside his car with the windows down. He was cursing and leaning on his car horn. I knew it didn't matter what she said. The worst damage was already done. After we took the bike upstairs, Naja and I washed up. We all 3 prayed and enjoyed Uma's meal. Afterwards, I took them both to the open mind bookstore with me. I was feeling uncomfortable leaving them in the building alone, even in our triple-locked apartment. I had some business to take care of with Marty. In the meantime, they could both find something to read and enjoy. As Uma flipped through the various magazine pages, I asked Marty what he knew about real estate.
That's a big question. What do you want to know?
He asked. Which newspapers or magazines might advertise houses for sale in a decent neighborhood for a reasonable price? I said. Marty laughed.
Planning on moving?
He asked. Maybe, I answered.
Brooklyn has everything, and I'm not saying that just to keep you close. Although I cannot afford to lose my best chess rival,
he said, smiling. He walked off and returned with a real estate newspaper.
You might want to take a look at this, he said. You just have to decide what your family is really prepared to do. You must want a mortgage with a good interest rate,
he asked. What if we didn't? What if we just wanted to buy the house directly? I asked.
Nobody does it. Why use up all of your money buying a house on your own when you can spend other people's money instead and then invest your private money into something smart and make your money make more money?
He asked. A mortgage is a 30-year thing, isn't it? We would be in debt for 30 years, and if we missed a payment or two for any reason, our house would disappear like it was never ours, right? I asked.
Right you are. It's the American way.
He was laughing, but I needed him to take me seriously.
There are other options,
He said.
You can rent to own. You could find an owner who is willing to sell you his house, but the owner rents it to you instead and applies a certain percentage of your rent payment to the overall purchase price of his house. This way, at least your rent is going towards you owning the house one day. Then you could keep your private money freed up to do something that makes your money make more money.
He made it sound like it was easy business. I stood and thought about his words. I always thought that he had to be involved in some other kind of business because over the years I rarely saw him receiving any customers. Yet he was always here, always smiling like money wasn't the point. I never understood how he could keep his store door open without multiple daily transactions and sales. I owed him a game, so we sat down and played chess.
You are a masterful player, my friend,
Marty said after his defeat on his own chessboard. I thanked him for the compliment.
No, it's not your chess playing I'm complimenting. It's your strategy in life,
he said, smiling. What? I asked, not following his logic.
Well, I won 3 games and you won 3 games,
he pointed out. I won the last 3 games in the last 3 weeks, I corrected him.
Yes, and today you brought your queen along with you to my palace. You knew that no man could concentrate with a beauty like her in the midst. And what a lovely scent she has brought into my store. You created a diversion, captured my queen, and assassinated me all at once.
He smiled, glancing at Uma. She is my mother, Marty, I said solemnly.
I know. You've won. So don't show off,
he said, resting his hand on my shoulder. I paid for Naja's 2 books. Don't forget my order, I reminded Marty. Put a rush on it, I pressed.
If there's a book in the universe that I can't find, then I'm not Marty Bookbinder.
We recited the last part together. As the 3 of us got on the train together and headed back to our building, I replayed Marty's statement in my head, the one statement that I would have normally forgotten.
Don't show off.
It was crazy to me, how I make it my business to mind my business, to lay low, to keep my mouth closed, to play my cards straight. But somehow, people, all kinds of people, still think I'm showing off and shining. How could I dim my light? How does a youth keep from shining when it's a natural thing? And why isn't it enough that I don't mess with nobody else's women, money, or things? Still, men wanted to have their things and my things too. Wars are made like this. Late that night, I put on my black khakis, my black boots, my black tee, my black gloves, and my black hoodie. From the rooftop, I watched my block. I needed to know how this cat was moving this week and where his most recent weak spots were located. All kinds came and went. Cops, strippers coming home from squeeze, jugglers, scramblers, dealers, regular night shift workers. When Conflict's black Camry Benz pulled up and parked, I could see a male approach his car and lean in to talk with him, but I couldn't tell who it was. So I headed down. I knew he would sit in his car and run his mouth because he was the type who could never say anything just once and never considered just shutting the up anyway. On the ground level, I exited the building, shot straight across to Heavenly's building, opened the elevator door, and pressed every button so the elevator would stop on every floor. When Conflict came up the stairs from the ground floor, he was cursing. Wait till I catch the little motherfuckers who busted a light! When he came around the wall separating the second floor from the third, I plunged my kunai down into the top of his head. He never saw the tiny and extremely sharp long blade. The ice pick-like weapon pushed through his scalp like it was pound cake and into his brain on the space where his brain was to be at. I twisted it one good time, dropped down onto the stairs, spilling his Chinese fried rice and rib tips and dropping his 9mm. These were the things he was holding before death made his muscles relax. He must have been suspicious about the fact that someone had busted all 8 light bulbs on all 8 flights of stairs leading into his heaven. That must have been why he had his gun drawn. I flicked the small key light I carried on my keychain and checked his face. If only he could see how uncool he looked, he would have been disappointed in himself. Next, I saw just a tiny droplet of blood falling down onto his forehead. Only the amount that could fit through the small hole in his head, which was still jammed with the kunai. I pulled my kunai out. I stepped around his body and disappeared. The whole caper had been executed without my hands or my gloves ever touching his body. He had so many enemies anyway. I'd let the authorities kill themselves trying to figure it out if they even wanted to bother. Chapter 39. Early morning, we took the Greyhound to Connecticut to see about a house. We sat in the back of the bus, Uma at the window, Naja right next to her, me right next to Naja with my legs stretched out into the open aisle. With my 2 ladies tucked safely on the inside, I slept till we arrived. By now, I knew I would be able to tell which house we would choose by the expression on Uma's face. While in Connecticut, I never saw that expression. I dropped her to work on time. I grabbed up Naja and went about my day. She read her first book, then read her second. She did her homework quietly at the dojo. I did not return to our block until 12:45 a.m. Monday night or Tuesday early morning, depending on how you want to look at it. After picking Uma up from work, we all 3 walked together from the train station to our block and into our building. Tuesday was tight, and it was the last day of Uma's night schedule. We dropped Naja to school, then we went to see a couple of Brooklyn houses for sale. From 12 noon until 2 p.m., I threw my full attention into Sensei's weapons class. The theme for the day was poisons. I found it amazing how regular items like flowers and plants and everyday household chemicals could be used to end lives. I also thought about how important it is who you allow into your personal space and trust. A woman you love, or a favorite restaurant owner, or anyone who could serve you food or drink or handle items that belong to you that you will in turn touch has the power to poison you in a way that authorities might never trace. I thought of Uma, who was a woman of herbs, oils, potions, and elixirs. Most of them contained ingredients that could be considered secret in the sense that she was the only one who knew about them, their portions and combinations and effects. I knew she probably already understood and knew the power of natural poisons, which were some of the lessons Sensei was giving today. I thought of Naja. She wanted me to train her in self-defense. Poisons seemed like something a female could get into. I guess it's the same spraying pepper spray or mace into an attacker's eyes. It's one of the few ways a 60 or 70-pound girl could slow down a 200-pound attacker. I believed that if I gave Naja a knife, even if I taught her how to use it, an attacker could too easily take a weapon from a small girl and use that same weapon to hurt her real bad. I cringed at the thought. I decided I would prepare a poison which could be thrown by a little girl to blind or temporarily disable an attacker and give it to Naja as a first lesson. Later, when I thought about all of the beautiful flowers like the African lily or the white oleander and the wedding flowers I ordered myself, I thought about heavenly paradise, how she talks so nice, dressed so nice, could look so nice like a blossoming flower, and be so poisonous on the inside. I dropped Uma to work, picked Naja up, Then we went to basketball practice, then the dojo, then to dinner, then to pick Uma back up and back on the block late night over again. Wednesday, the next day, was a relief. After I dropped Naja and Uma in the early morning, I returned home and slept. 6 hours later, I walked down to Daquan's apartment, something that I had not done in months. I needed to put my ear to the ground. Besides, I thought I had the perfect pretext. "Must mean jihad," Daquan said when he opened his door for me. "First time you come by my place, it was jihad. Next time you came to my place, it was jihad," he said, referring to the time when I bought a 4.5 and a silencer off of him. "Now this is the third time. What can I get for you?" he asked. "They say omens come in threes," he added. "No jihad, no beef. I stopped by to put you up on something. You know I'm playing ball over at..." I told him the whole rundown on the teen league minus the money involved and about the upcoming scrimmage on Friday night. "I thought you might want to check it out. There might be some business opportunities, some heavy players out. You know what I mean," I said. "Yeah, I know about the Hustlers League, but not about the junior division. You should have told me sooner. I would have put my brothers in it." I turned like I was leaving. "So what you think about this shit with our man Conflict?" he asked me. I turned back. "What's new with that cat?" I asked. "He returned to the Essence Sunday night. Dead," Daquan said, looking at me in the face for my reaction. But I knew better than to seem sad, happy, or even concerned. Daquan knew I didn't like that sucker. I knew Daquan didn't really like his either. Matter of fact, there was a bunch of cats that hated that dumb tyrant and only affiliated with him because he was Superior's brother. "That must have freed up some of your money then, right?" I said. Daquan smiled. "You a cold motherfucker," he said. "Not as cold as you," I answered. He gave me £1. "So, you coming to the game?" I asked, like it really mattered. I, of course, knew that Daquan loved games. Any type of game where men competed and somebody got conquered fair and square. "Shit, I want to, but the wake is Friday night. Everybody from around here gonna be there double checking to make sure that is really in the box," Daquan laughed. I didn't. "Plus, Superior will be checking to see who pays their respects." "Alright, man, do what you gotta do. Check the box, then roll through at halftime. The game should be crazy," I said. As I reached for the door to leave, Daquan said, "You came a long way from Sandals. I see you every day chilling. I'm proud to see you shining. I like to think I had something to do with that." "You left me no other choice," I said solemnly. "I guess I owe you some appreciation," I said. "Thanks, man." Gave him £1. He wanted a hug. We embraced, and I left. Outside, I saw Conflict's parked Camry Benz. It was dirty, bird shit everywhere, with 3 parking tickets placed under the wiper. Chapter 40. Wednesday night at the dojo, me, Amir, and Chris got to talk. It was the first time this week I had showed up without Naja and didn't have to pick up Uma late at night. Her work schedule was back to normal. "Now don't go catching feelings when me and the red team come rock y'all blacks on Friday night," Amir joked, but I knew he meant it. "Whatever happens, happens," I said. "I either get half of yours or you get half of mine," I reminded him. "Not halves, thirds," Chris reminded us too. "We got a game too on Friday night. It's the green team versus the whites over in Brownsville." He was serious, but we all laughed anyway at the sound of it. Uma was already studying the 100 questions when I arrived home. Naja was her tutor. I showered and joined in. I didn't need to do much studying. I already knew the majority of the answers. I went to bed early, resting up for the game and whatever else was coming my way. If I could get 2 good nights sleep, I could be at the top of my skill set. I wondered what Akemi was doing, how she was feeling, how she was looking, and what her family was saying or telling her to do. I drifted off, wishing she would call, but not even considering calling her before I knew what verdict was coming from the men in her family. On Thursday, I went on my own to see a property I found in the newspaper Marty Bookbinder had given to me. It was located on Beach 9 in Far Rockaway, Queens. It was a for sale by owner, quote unquote, and the cost was $80,000. The seller was an elderly, short Jew with thick glasses and a slow walk that added 20 extra minutes onto every undertaking. At first, he didn't want to open his front door, I'm sure. I looked frightening in my everyday fresh gear. He peered through the body-length rectangular window beside the door. His hand was shaking as he held back his white lace curtain. I pressed the newspaper, ironically called The Connection, up against the glass. He was encouraged to open the door, at least enough for him to talk through the 3-inch space that was open but still chained. "Good morning. I saw your advertisement for a house for sale in this newspaper. I'm the one who called and made the 11 a.m. appointment." "Well, it's 11 a.m. now and I'm here," I said politely.
Who gave you this paper?
He asked. "What paper?" I asked.
The newspaper.
He responded like he was quick and I was slow. "Oh, Marty Bookbinder. He's a friend of mine. But the paper is on sale to the general public at Marty's bookstore," I said. He slid the chain off. Come in, he said as though I had suddenly given the correct password. Automatically, I hated the furniture and the stale smell of the place. It was a house that had, more than anything, been lived in. There were things packed up and piled up everywhere in uneven stacks in every room. I loved the house. There were 3 bedrooms, a small study, a living room with a fireplace, a small dining room, 2.5 bathrooms, and a basement. The paneling in the basement was old and out of style, but the basement was finished and even had a small kitchenette. I couldn't really see the kitchen, which was so small you could miss it if you didn't look hard. But because they had boxes and papers stacked even on the counters and floors in there. There was a backyard, about 50 feet by 50 feet. More importantly, there was a fence. There was an unused clothing line I knew Uma would like, and a deck where a family could chill and grill or just read a book. It had electric heat and no central air conditioning, but the owner had a big antique air conditioner in his bedroom window, which he claimed worked well, but he would be leaving it behind. The house sat right next door to the house on the left of it, but it was at the end of the block. There was no house to the right of it, only woods, but the beach was around the corner, and the street had trees and privacy. "Who lives next door?" I asked.
"Good people, the Ornoffs, but they'll be selling soon too. Everybody's going south to Florida," he said.
"When are you prepared to sell?" I asked him.
"If the money is right, we can vacate by the 1st of June, he said. "No more New York winters for me," he complained.
When my tour of his house was over, he asked,
"Who's got the money?"
He revealed his teeth, which looked like they had $50,000 worth of dental work done on them. "My family," I said. "How long would it take for you to get clearance on the loan?" he asked.
"I can't wait forever."
Then he added with a laugh,
"I guess you can tell."
"How long would it take for you to get the inspections?" I asked.
"Inspections, lawyers, and all those other damn thieves."
The man had an outburst.
"Why should we give them a piece of our money? My son's an attorney, the lying bastard. I'm an old-timer. If you want to buy this house, then buy it. If something is broke when you move in, fix it. I'm a straight shooter. I'm asking for $80,000, not a penny less, not a penny more."
Wondering if this guy was legit or some kind of senile lunatic, I asked some follow-up questions. You have the deed, right?
Of course, he said. No deed, no sale. When I bought this house, they gave me a deed. You buy this house, I give you the deed, plain and simple.
I stood thinking.
How fast can you get the money?
He asked again. I'll have to let my family see the place first, I told him.
Your mother, right? It's always the mother, he said.
I smiled. Yes, it is always the mother, no doubt, I agreed. We can come by on Saturday around 5 p.m., I said. Is that good for you?
Listen, whoever gets here with the money first gets the house first. I don't care if you carry it in a little plastic bag. Money is money. Coins are good too. My wife loves the casino, as long as it adds up to $80,000.
Okay, I hear you, I said. Despite the old guy being a bit unstable, I left the house with a good feeling. If I could get a comfortable expression on Uma's face, we could buy it. Although in the back of my mind, I was thinking how once we paid out the 80 grand plus whatever side expenses it involved, we would not have 1 penny savings left in our Uma Designs account. I would only have my small savings and Uma's jewelry as collateral or emergency fund. I also thought about the rent-to-buy option, quote-unquote. Yet, I knew this wasn't available with this guy who obviously had a little bit of time left and big plans for the money from the sale of his little outdated home. The MVP prize money at the Youth League was looking more and more appealing and important to me. It needs work, I told Uma, but it's close enough to Naja's school. We wouldn't lose any of our customers, and I walked around the neighborhood. It's mostly older Jewish people, mostly quiet. The backyard is all weeds, but once you put your touch to it, everything will blossom. I know it.
And what about Akemi? Will she like it?
Uma asked. Akemi likes me. I guess that's good enough, I said, smiling.
Ooh,
Uma said.
You must be right.
She was smiling. You are both artists. Eventually, the house will become too small to be home to 2 tremendous talents. But for now, we can make it work, I told Uma. We agreed on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. for a visit. I imagined that no one else would rush there with 80 grand stuffed inside a hefty for the old man. Chapter 41. Friday I felt powerful, well-rested, and optimistic. I raised up early, showered, and then placed my head to the floor in prayer. When I walked past Akemi's family store, the metal gate was only halfway up. All day long working at Cho's, I looked out for Akemi. By noon, Cho's store was crowded with customers. From noon to 2, I watched for her to do her sneaky walk by. By 3 p.m. Quentin time, I felt bad that she didn't show. Of course, I wanted to rush into her uncle's store, charge into the back room and grab my girl, and dash out their door and never return. But I knew better. My one big up, the beatdown and bruises, had placed her family ahead of me in some way. I wouldn't worry. She said she loved me, and I knew she did. Tomorrow, I told myself, she'll show tomorrow. We'll go see the house together, Uma, Akemi, Naja, and me, Shala. Locking my apartment door, leaving Uma and Naja and my longing for Akemi on the inside, I made my way to the game. Now it was about total concentration. A sold-out concert. That's what the park was like. All the spaces and seats on the outdoor bleachers were taken. On both sides and down front as far as they could reach without interfering with our game, the fans stood shoulder to shoulder. Real hustlers in new rides parked all around the perimeter. Little boys, preteens, waiting for their chance to rock and shine, hung from the fences like monkeys so they could see past all the adults who wouldn't let them squeeze in. Everybody was cleaned up nice like a fashion show, the models and the onlookers. There was music, all kinds of music. None of it official by a hired-out DJ. Instead, it was one man's musical tastes battling the next man's musical tastes. No one was selling franks or peanuts and popcorn like the garden, but people were brown bagging beers. The smell of herb made ghetto clouds, and the females were swinging hard 'cause they smelled money. Coach Vega was amped all the way up like a coke fiend, but he was drug-free and hell-bent on his squad making him look good. It was the first time we ever seen him not wearing anything with the color red in it. He was dressed up more so for the after party, or in his mind, the victory celebration. He had enough cologne on for all the dudes seated in the first row of both bleachers. I swear I doubted this cat had ever played basketball himself. But he was 3 parts: passion, personality, and style. And for whatever it was worth, he made every member of our team feel like he gave a for real. We warmed up. The red team showed up looking like a bunch of niggas in a lineup. They had 11 players, not 12, and about 75 people trailing behind them, going nowhere because there wasn't more seats available. Their rowdiness caused a melee. It took about 5 to 7 minutes to clear it up. Amir was in the middle of everything. All I could think was, that's all he needed. These people are like gasoline to his match, and he was loving it. I slapped myself in the head to jar me out of friendship mode. I came to play. I came to win. And somebody had to leave defeated, no doubt. After the first quarter, I had the whole schematic figured out. Based on Amir's funny stories about his teammates, I pegged who didn't like who was hogging, who was hating, and so on. In our huddle, I put Panama up on a setup. I would take care of their captain Amir. He would check their number 2-man specialist, and we would leave their man Noodles wide open 'cause he was no good. Panama accepted the plan, then told me he was gonna break their center's eyeglasses 'cause he couldn't see without them. Then we would have 2 men on the court that posed no problem at all. Vega paced but didn't interfere. The crowd hung on our every move. A lot of showboating went down, but by the end of the game it was 87 to 69 our favor. Panama accidentally, quote-unquote, broke the glasses and pulled down 28 points. I pulled down 34. The rest of our team stepped up and did their thing as well. We got some instant cheerleaders stomping on the court. Female teams made up a team song on the spot with their t-shirts flipped over and pulled down to make halter tops, tight jeans, cutoffs, and miniskirts. They cheered and bounced for us, the hook ringing throughout the park.
'Cause we're black. Hey, and we dominate. Whoa.
Vega had us in a tight pack. He was trying to set up the after celebration, but cats were telling him they wanted to scoop up the girls and go their separate ways. Panama leaned on cats that we could scoop up the girlies tomorrow at the jam. It should just be the fellas tonight. I was looking over the red team. They were in the process of blaming one another and f***ing each other up before they even got all the way off the court. Amir wasn't running no risks. He was off to the side, had his arms around 2 girls and his back towards me. I told my team, we did good, but this wasn't even officially game 1. We gotta keep the pressure on them.
On who?
Mateo, one of our team members, asked me. On every team we play, I answered, feeling the rush of adrenaline. Vega threw his arm around me. Vega, me, and the whole team walked. I told the coach I had to go to work early in the morning, so I had to break out. It didn't help my story that Bangs was standing beneath the lamppost in a sparkling white tee that said midnight in bold blue letters plastered over her 34 Ds. Panama looked, smiled, and said, I see where you're headed and I understand. He laughed, his gold frames around his white teeth standing out. I walked over to Bangs. I would have been crazy not to. I can't believe you're standing still, I said.
I got 3 minutes before I start running.
She smiled now, shifting her pretty legs back and forth and her deep dish dimples spread.
I know you're gonna walk with me home, right?
She smiled again. Of course, I told her, bouncing my ball.
Did you tell your girlfriend about me?
She asked. What's there to tell? I teased.
Don't break my heart,
she said.
And when you smile, look the other way. My eyes and my heart can't take it.
She placed her hand on my face and mushed it in the other direction away from her. What do you want to do, Bangs? I asked her, stupidly believing that if I stepped up, she would take some steps back.
I want to do whatever you doing,
she said and smiled again.
You should see me at my house laying on my bed, wondering where you at and why you ain't calling and what you doing now and who you doing it with.
She would pull on a new finger with each question she was wondering about. Don't you have anything better to do? I asked her.
Nothing that I really want to do,
she answered. We arrived at her door.
You coming in, right?
Oh no, I gotta go. I gotta work in the morning, I told her. I walked off hard as a brick. The urge within me was growing stronger every day. It was the adrenaline from the training and the sports, the hordes of girls, the cheering and the encouragement. My mind switched to what was real. Every day, I was yearning for Akemi. I might not have said it out loud, but I really wanted to touch and feel her womb with my fingers, with my tongue, my dick. I didn't want nothing in between me and her flesh. No rubbers, no plastics, no creams, no patches, no pills. Just natural body to body. I wanted to be all over her, and I wanted her all over me as her body flowed into some of those hot-ass yoga positions. Late night, I listened for Akemi's voice on the voicemail. It wasn't there. Instead, aside from our regular and new business customers, both Sudana and Amir called. Good game, Amir said when I called him back. Man, you gotta get those knuckleheads on your team to knuckle down, I told him. That motherfuckers is embarrassing, Amir said. Never in my life. Yeah, but you the captain. You gotta provide the leadership. You're conquering them guys instead of building them up. You're right. I gotta go, man. Check you Monday night. I got a Slimmy on my side, he said. Saturday, there was no Akemi in sight. I was feeling miserable now. It had been 7 days and 6 nights, and I couldn't hear a word from her. I called her house knowing her uncle wasn't home and therefore wouldn't pick up the phone. I knew he was right down the street in his store. Her phone rang and rang and rang. I called her cousin's house knowing I shouldn't, but I did anyway. Is Akemi there? I asked.
No, she doesn't live here, as you know,
her cousin said smartly. I took a deep breath, knowing that I wouldn't get nowhere fighting the cousin, so I tried to be easy. Listen, I know you're mad with me, but I really love Akemi. I just want you to tell me if she's okay and what's happening, that's it.
She's okay,
the cousin said, softening a bit. I didn't respond. I figured I'd give her space to talk if she was willing.
She's locked up in her art studio. There's no phone in there. She's mad at all of us because of you, the cousin said. She fights for you, you know, and she is in so much trouble.
What kind of trouble? I asked, really concerned.
It doesn't matter. If you really love her as you say you do, you'll leave her alone. She has work to do. She has to finish up her projects for the show, she said. It's a big deal, you know. You act like it's nothing, but it's everything to her father.
So that's what you decided, huh? I asked.
I decided?
She asked. Yeah, you're the one making all the decisions. You're the one speaking to everybody. Me, Alchemy, all the families. You're in control. I see that now, I said, leaning on her.
Oh, believe me, Alchemy does whatever she wants to do. She knows where you are, doesn't she? If she's not coming around, maybe she doesn't want to anymore,
her cousin said, sounding pissy. You got it, I said. My bad. Sorry to bother you. Later. I hung up. Chapter 42. Uma's facial expression finally said yes. Naja said,
It's gonna take us a year to clean this mess up and paint these walls, and it stinks here.
She was right. We'll have to let a lawyer look at the paperwork first, I told the old man.
It's your money. Spend it how you like. The first one who gets here with...
I know. We'll contact you first thing next week, I promised. At home, we sat on the floor reviewing the paperwork and organizing the details of the steps we needed to take before purchasing the house. We both wished that we could finalize the purchase of the house, yet we both know from experience that only fools rush in. A lawyer would cost some fee. However, a good lawyer might save a lot of agony in the long run. Afterwards, we studied the 100 questions, agreeing that we would go through the citizenship ceremony on this upcoming Wednesday. It would be nice to have the citizenship in place prior to the purchase of the new home. Chapter 43. Chris called. Me and Amir are going up to that party at the high school tonight where the black team practices, he said. You want to meet us over there? He asked. What time y'all running through? I asked. About 10 p.m. tonight. It ends at 1. You know how it is, he said. I'll be there at 10. Y'all be easy till I get there, I told him. We got it, he said. Yo, my team won, did you hear? I knew you would, I said. You'll keep winning until you meet the blacks, I said. We both laughed. The beats in the music were so powerful, I could feel them vibrating in my chest. It was dark like nighttime inside of there. Only the light from the DJ booth and a random beam from the flashlight of the 4 or so chaperones had any impact on the darkness. Looked like every team in Brooklyn was packed in the space of the gym. Each person was body to body, booty to booty, for real. I stood still in the crowd, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the darkness, smelling hairsprays and perfumes and oils and sweats. The DJ threw on a Dougie Fresh Slick Rick joint, and the crowd jerked like a train pulling off from the station. It was a good feeling in the atmosphere. I walked around looking for my boys, but there were at least 250 cats up in there and 300 girls. By the time I walked all the way to the far wall, I still hadn't seen them. Bangs was there, though. She found me before I found her. The DJ threw on some sexy song named Doing It by a black chick who sounded like she was f***ing and rhyming at the same time. 500 hips were grinding simultaneously. Bang slid herself against the wall, and right in front of me, she leaned her body back on it and started grinding on me. I put my arms around her waist and pulled her even tighter. We were pressed together like what? The music did something no one could ever do. Sucked my mind right out of my head. Her body felt good from her shoulders on down, all curves and valleys. She was holding me so tight, like she would die before she would let me go. Her hands were rubbing all over me. No shyness, no restrictions. The DJ changed the joint, sped up the pace, and flipped the vibe. I pulled back some. She pushed back in. I whispered in her ear, "Go home." She let her hands drop from me and stood on tiptoe to whisper back.
Why?
Because I said so.
Will you come?
I don't know, I answered. But you go, I told her. She started cutting her way through the tight crowd. I followed her, but she wouldn't know. It was too loud, too crowded, too dark, too confusing. Once she pushed through the doors of the gym, I waited a few and walked out. I watched as she made it out to the sidewalk, then took off in a mean sprint. It was 10:45 p.m. I knew she had to be home to her grandmother by 11 p.m. anyway. When I went back in, I found Amir in a dance battle against 5 dudes, all 6 of them freestyling and surrounded by a triple layer of girls cheering them on. It wasn't long before I spotted Chris up against the wall, wrapped around some girl like a pretzel. This was the perfect crime scene, I told to myself. Everybody all pressed together with the lights out, nobody really controlling shit, no gun check at the door, everybody dressed in their best, scared with their chains tucked, bold with their chains dangling in plain view. If I had beef with people in here, I could stab them up easily and get away with it too. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who thought so. I seen a line of collecting and swerving through the crowd like a train that ran off the track. They was being led by none other than the red team idiot from Red Hook. I went and plucked Amir from his good time and stripped Chris off of an unknown girl. It's about to go down, I warned them. The Red Hook started shouting, "Red Hook!" which made the teens from this hood, which was Bed-Stuy, start screaming Bed-Stuy. Brownsville spoke up, then East New York signing off with a crazy, loud, unruly crew. People started pushing and splitting up. Come on, I told Chris and Amir. They followed me. Before we could get to the door, a fight broke out. Some change got snatched. The Red Hook knocked a couple of people over, then shot through the doors with the jewels. A crowd of hundreds got panicked, and everybody tried to stuff themselves through the gym doors at the same time. The sirens were screaming and police lights were spinning by the time we hit the open air. Everybody started running. I mean flying and jetting and zigzagging. Chris and Amir was gone, and so was I. The cop cars were accumulating, careless and confused. As I ran down the dark path to Bangs' window, I heard 8 Glock shots let off. I heard the separate siren sounds of the ambulances screeching. Bangs had the window open. I jumped in. The lights were off in her room. I closed the window and felt around for the window lock.
It's at the top, but it's broke,
she said. I sat down on the floor where she was at. It was warm inside.
It's so nice to see you,
she said calmly. She struck a match and held it up as though it could light up her whole room. It burnt down and heated up her fingers instead. She got up and started searching for something as my eyes adjusted to her darkness. I heard her strike a match again, then saw her light a candle. She put the candle, which was waxed, onto a plate that held it up on the floor. Then she went and lit another one. There was one candle on her side and the other candle on mine. Now I could see her pretty smile and deep-dish dimples. Still, my mind was on my boys, and I could hear the running and chasing drama still going on outside.
It's nothing, Superstore. This happens all the time around here. You and Bed-Stuy,
she said, smiling, seeming much calmer than I'd ever seen her. Where do you think I'm from? The police is the police, I told her.
They'll bring the paddy wagons around in about 5 minutes, start sweeping everybody who's outside on the streets right up into their custody, she said casually. Somebody got shot, I told her. Better hope it's not a cop. They'll go door to door tearing everything up, pulling everybody out. Better hope it's not some shot in the leg or something, she said even more casually. Chris and Amir are out there.
I'd rather it be a cop than be one of them, I said.
You want me to go get him and bring him inside here?
She asked. Why would I send you out there? I asked her.
'Cause I live around here and it ain't nothing to me. I'm a girl and they ain't looking for no girls and won't with me. And even if they say something, I could just say that's my house right there. All they gonna say is,
well, get inside and stay inside for the rest of the night, she said softly. Damn, how many times did this happen to you? I asked her.
It doesn't happen to me. It happens around here. That's what I'm saying.
She got up and put on her jacket.
I'll be right back.
In 10 minutes, she came back. I had stashed my gun by that time, just in case. I got off the floor when I saw Amir step up. He was smiling like this whole thing was a game. Brother, you really are a f***ing disappearing magician ninja secret agent, ain't you? Look at you. You got a girl and a house and all that shit. Who the f*** knew? I'm supposed to be your best friend and I ain't even know. Amir joked. Bangs laughed too. Where's Chris? I asked him. I don't know. You see what happened. Everybody broke up and split off and went their own way, he said.
I found him in the fried chicken store on the corner, right where I knew he would be.
Bangs said. We gotta go and get Chris, I told Amir.
The cops had a bunch of boys in the paddy wagon and some boys in the back of their police cars. I think I saw your friend Chris in the back of the police car, but I'm not all the way sure. If you go out there now, you're gonna get rounded up. I'm sure about that.
Bangs warned. Wherever Chris is, that's where he's at, Amir said. It's not like he's still out there running or looking around for us. I thought about it for a minute. Let's just lay low in here for a minute, I told Amir.
That's all right, 'cause they out there. The police, the paddy wagons, the whole nine.
She warned. I could definitely chill right here, Amir said. Go out in the living room, I told him. Bangs pointed him to the couch. She came back in and closed the door. As she went to sit down, Amir came back in. If y'all about to get into it, could I at least get a blanket and one candle? He asked. Somebody didn't pay the electric bill. He laughed. Bangs got up. Sit down, I told her. You don't get nothing, Amir. Just chill on the couch for a few. You're scared of the dark? What you think this is? I said. I got up and closed the door. I discovered there was no lock on her bedroom door either. How did you know where Amir was? I asked her.
Because that's how dudes around here do it when the police is chasing them. They blend right in with whatever everybody else is already doing. The ones that just keep on running on the streets are the ones who get caught.
She said calmly. But how did you know which one was Amir? I asked her.
Because he was the only one in there with green eyes,
she said matter-of-factly, but her words got me tight for some reason I didn't immediately understand.
I'm saying he was with you when I first met you, so I knew who you was talking about, but that's it. The only reason why I know him is because he was with you, period.
She explained herself passionately. I looked at her real good in the pieces of light offered by the candle. I'm thinking to myself, at least she left the party when I told her to and went straight home like I told her to do. She didn't give me a lot of attitude and static. At least she was smart enough to leave the window open for me. At least she was bold enough to go outside and find Amir. She was cool, I decided. After some minutes, she asked,
So what about us?
You know I got a girl, right? I asked her, being serious with her about the topic for the first time.
Yes,
she said straight-faced for the first time on the topic. You might have figured out that I love her a lot, I said, watching her closely.
Okay, that hurt,
she said. Do you want me to lie to you? I asked her.
Yes,
she said, and smiled in a mature way, like a woman instead of a fidgeting teen.
I'm saying, just don't talk about her. Just don't mention her. Don't even tell me her name. Just when you see me, see me. We can be like real cool friends,
she said. Friends? I asked her. Could you really do it like that? I asked her again. Could you and me really only be friends? I pressed her. And how many friends like me do you have? I pushed.
None,
she answered swiftly.
I don't have a man, and I definitely don't have any friends like you,
she confessed. I thought to myself, this girl doesn't know me, not even a little bit. When that love works its way into my chest like it did with Akemi, I feel too close, so possessive, so crazy. I could do anything at that point. Same as I need to have Akemi completely, every single inch of her. Mind, body, soul, spirit, and anything extra. That's how I would be with anyone who I loved. Now she wanted to be a part of it, but I knew she wasn't ready.
Superstar, I can make you feel good.
Bringing back her excited ways. I can make you feel good too, I answered, feeling challenged by her.
Well, come on then. Stop teasing me,
she invited. Then what? I asked her.
Then if you like it and if you like me, you can come again,
she said, smiling. And when I'm not around, what will you do? I asked her.
Wait for you,
she said. There was a knock at the door, too soft to be Amir. It was her grandmother. The baby is hungry now, she said. Bangs jumped up and walked over and took the newborn into her arms. Her sleepy grandmother walked away, closing the door. I could tell she didn't even see me sitting right there on the floor. The door pushed open again, but this time it was Amir. Man, I gotta give it to you. You got a baby too? That's it. You're good, Amir said, still joking around and interfering. Close the door, I told him. Bangs laid the baby on her bed. She pulled a t-shirt over her shoulders and unsnapped her bra and took it off. She picked the baby up and turned around. She bent over and handed the infant to me.
Hold her for a minute, please.
Her breasts, the size of 2 ripe grapefruits, were dangling when she went to pass the child, and sweet milk started shooting up. When she sat down on the floor, she took her baby back. The child latched on to her bare breasts and started swooping on us. The baby's fingers were pressing into its throat. The baby was breathing as if its mother's body and milk was the closest thing to ecstasy.
Now, what were you saying?
She asked me. I don't know if this was a test. I never seen or read a chapter in the Holy Quran that taught a man how to deal with a situation like this. And how strong is a man supposed to be when even the Quran says in 1 or 2 places that men are weak? Where is your baby's father? I asked her.
Dad,
she answered.
Got hit by a drunk driver.
Sorry, I offered.
The newspaper article is on the back of my door. You can see it next time when the power's back on.
The flame from the candles cast an erotic silhouette of Bangs feeding her baby onto the wall. I felt like clamping myself onto the other breast. So this is why you're always running? For your grandmother and to your baby? I asked her.
Yes, I run because my milk builds up while I'm at school. If I don't get home quick enough to let her see this, us will get too swollen, and sometimes they hurt, and sometimes they start leaking too.
My body was turned on by her, but I reminded myself not to spill my seed into her. How old is she? I asked about her baby.
3 months,
she said.
But her father died before she was even born,
she explained.
I wanted you to see her anyway. That's why I always invited you in. I know some men run away from babies,
she said sweetly with regret. What kind of man would run from a baby? I asked her seriously. She just stared at me like she had just that second fell into a deep love. But I had to pull myself out. I had to pull myself out carefully. I didn't want to damage anyone or anything. I sat watching her until the baby finished to suck. Then I raised up to leave. She didn't seem surprised.
At least give me a kiss,
she said. She stood up. My body wanted to. Her lips were thick and smooth and moist and real pretty. Nah, I told her. If I get started, I won't stop.
That's cold,
she whispered. Actually, it's the opposite, I thought to myself. I walked over to her bed and picked up her bra. Burp her, I said, remembering Naja as a baby.
Okay,
she said. Afterwards, she laid her baby down and faced me with her full pretty, see this? I helped her back into her bra and snapped it closed. Then I slid her t-shirt back over her head.
If you're gonna go now, at least change your shirt in case they got a description of your clothes from earlier when you was running. And leave your heat here. You don't want to get caught with that. That's an automatic 5.
She said casually. Who lives in this house? I asked again.
My grandmother and me.
And your daughter, I added. Anyone else?
No one else.
I already stashed my piece, I admitted to her.
I knew you would,
she said.
And I knew you was holding. I felt it when we were dancing.
Yeah. Thanks for that dance, I told her. She tossed me 2 champion hoodies. I opened the door and tossed one out to Amir and told him to throw back his shirt. I'll come back through for my joint. Leave it where I left it. Don't with it. You might hurt yourself or somebody else, I said. And thanks for looking out. I appreciate it, really.
When you coming back?
She asked, her eyes and her body calling me. When I come back, I told her. Like you said. You'll wait for me. We're gonna have to go check for Chris, I told Amir. We could just call him, Amir said. No, we can't, I said. Why not? Amir asked. Because let's say he got away and made his way back home. If we call at 2 o'clock in the morning, then by ringing the phone, we are blowing up his spot with his father. Let's say he didn't make it home. Well, we don't know where he is, and even if he's okay, then we would still be blowing up his spot with his father. Or say he had already called his father and told him one thing, then we call and... Damn, I get it, Amir said. We'll head up to his father's church in the morning. If Chris is okay, that's where he'll be. A Muslim and a 5%er in the church? Amir doubted. Man, if something happened to me, wouldn't you come looking for me no matter where I was at? I asked him. No doubt, he answered. As we walked swiftly yet calmly through the streets of Bed-Stuy, headed for the train station, we were both silent, trapped in the thoughts in our heads. I told myself I should make a prayer for Chris. If anything happened to him, I will feel personally responsible. Brother, Amir said, breaking the silence. That's a nice piece you got back there. I could see why you hit her. He was referring to bangs. I didn't say nothing in response. Commenting on other men's women is purely an American thing. Chapter 44. The Christian church was a first-time and strange experience for me. In a lot of ways, it was the opposite of the mosque that Muslims attend. I found it odd that the Christian women of the church could not cover up themselves for at least one day, their day of worship. Instead, they arrived decked out in tight, short clothing. Mothers and daughters alike had their necks, cleavage, breasts, thighs, and legs exposed to some degree, slight or completely bold and obvious. There was no difference between the 30-year-old woman and the 14-year-old girls back on my block. I doubted that any man could concentrate on God in this setting. At the same time, the men were all well-suited, dressed, and completely covered up, escorting their mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters who were half naked. I couldn't figure it out. Everyone in the church entered through the same doors and prayed together, sitting down or standing up and in the same space. In the mosque, the men either prayed in front of the women, with the women praying behind them, or the prayer areas were side by side or in separate spaces. We believe that prayer is supposed to be devoted completely to Allah, with no diversions or lusts or preoccupations working their way into the eyesight, mind, or thoughts of the Muslim. Besides, we start off standing when we pray, but we conclude completely bent over with our heads touching the ground in complete respect and praise of God. Chris's father, the Reverend, who Amir and I have seen over the years, looked different in his church robes. I mean, he was always a conservative and quiet-moving man who I never seen rock a pair of jeans, not even once. Outside of his church, where we would see him, he usually wore some style of a hat, hard-bottom shoes, dress shirts, dress socks, and slacks, even at sporting events and on weekends. Now, he looked much more removed, like an American Supreme Court judge or a black pope. He was raised up on a higher platform than his congregation, speaking in a loud, tired voice that was projected from the microphone, though it really wasn't needed. The sermon, which we Muslims call the khutbah, was a story from their Holy Bible, Luke chapter 15, about a son who makes wrong choices in his life despite his father's advice and teachings. The son runs away to another town to live the way he wants to live outside of the eyesight and reach of his father. The son ends up spending his monies foolishly and is forced to take a job working with pigs. The son finally realizes that he needs his father and should have respected his father's wisdom in the first place. The son returns to the father begging for forgiveness. The father forgives and accepts his son, even though the son really didn't do anything good or right or respectful to show and prove that he deserved his father's forgiveness. After listening to the sermon, I knew that Chris's father knew all about what happened at the party last night. The disappointment was felt in his words and stamped on his tired face. I also knew that Chris would be forgiven. However, the point seemed to be that he would have to do something to win back his father's trust. All me and Amir could see was the back of Chris's head. He was seated in the first row of the church, and we were seated in the last row of the church. Amir said, "Let's just walk up there and go get him." "We can't start walking around while the brother's father is speaking," I said. "Let's just chill till the end, then we could get at him." Some people who were seated behind the reverend up there and facing the congregation stood up. A funny-looking dude started giving them hand signals, and they all began to sing. Amir leaned over to me and said, "That's a F right there, 100%. That's an American thing," I thought to myself. Or should I say, a European thing. I hear this word used all the time and am still confused by it. I was only sure that we didn't have no quote-unquote, back home where I come from. Usually when cats pointed out a quote-unquote it was some guy who dressed, walked, or talked and acted like a female. Or some boy who could not do the same things that other boys did eagerly and naturally, like playing sports, fighting, and fixing things. My confusion came in when black American boys called a boy who loves his mother, or when somebody said a boy who sticks by his mother, helps her out often, and protects her is some kind of To me, there had to be a difference between a boy who acted like or wanted to be a woman and one who loves his mother a whole lot. For me, loving, standing by, serving, and protecting Uma was like breathing, a strength and not a weakness. So I just didn't respond to Amir's comment. A paper plane came flying from the right side of the room and landed in the lap of the woman seated beside Amir. "Excuse me, that's for me," Amir told the woman. He unfolded the plane and we both read the note at the same time.
"We see you're new to our church. We think you and your friend are cute. We are sitting on your right side, the third and fourth girl in red dress and long hair and yellow blouse and short hair. Meet us downstairs afterwards."
Amir looked at me and smiled. "See? I told you these Christian dudes are Christian girls want Muslim Now I knew, based on Amir's words, that also meant a male who wasn't all the girls who wanted to get I thought to myself, this one word had a whole lot of different meanings. It still meant nothing to me, as a Sudanese. A well-dressed woman, wearing everything brand new, sang a sad song. She looked like she had been to hell, seen the devil, and came back. The tears eased out of her eyes as she sang. The people stood for what seemed to be the final prayer. I stood too. They bowed their heads. I faced front until the prayer was over. "Come on," I told Amir. "Let's go talk to Chris." Chris was shocked to see us. He touched the material on both of our dress shirts as if he was impressed. "Get the f*** out of here. You two in church?" he said, then looked around to see if anyone overheard him. He glanced at his father, who was standing at the front receiving people one by one who seemed to just want to greet him and touch and shake his hand. "Let's step to the back," Chris told us. "Is that your mother seated there?" I asked him. "Oh yeah, let me introduce you," he said. His mother was polite, but more focused on her husband and his activity at the front of the church. Chris explained, "These are my two best friends from the dojo, who I tell you about all the time." We also met Chris' younger sister and brother, who were perfectly dressed, well-behaved, faces shining with a thick coat of Vaseline. As we three walked towards the back of the church, we were interrupted by a young female wearing pretty pumps on her feet, a tight skirt, and silk blouse, nipples erect, even through her bra. She stuck her foot out as if to trip Chris. He stopped walking. She stood directly in front of him, playfully pushing him and asking,
"Aren't you gonna introduce me to your friends?"
He introduced her as his girlfriend, a surprise to both of us. Afterwards, she tried to follow us to the back, but Chris told her to go sit down and wait on him. In the back corner of the church, he filled us in about what happened. "Hey, last night I almost got away. I was real close, but the cop who was chasing me tripped and fell and busted his ass. I shouldn't have laughed, but it was funny watching him down on the pavement, grabbing for his hand radio. I started running again, got about 40 feet out of his way, then a police car shot across my path, slammed on the brakes, cut me off. Next thing I knew, "You're under arrest." They cuffed me and pushed me into the back seat. I was just glad they didn't kill me, because they did clap up some other kid, dead over nothing, some bullshit. Another cop car pulled up with 3 girls riding in the back. The window came down, and all 3 girls were all staring at me. They started speaking among themselves. Then I saw them tell the cop who was driving the police car,
"No."
"No what?" Amir asked. "No, I wasn't one of the ones who snatched their gold chains. There was like 6 girls and 3 dudes who got their jewels swiped at the party. The dumbass cops caught all the wrong boys and the real ones got away," Chris said. "Were you scared?" Amir asked. "Hell yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping y'all would be down there at Central Booking when I arrived. You know, 3 is better than 1. They laughed. "How did you get out in less than 24 hours? I asked him on a serious note. "You must have snitched on them other dudes," Amir said, only half joking. "I couldn't snitch on nobody. I never even saw what happened. That went down way too fast," Chris swore. But Amir and I both knew it was the Red Hook from the red team that led the whole caper. "Then how did you get out?" I repeated my question. He answered reluctantly. "My pops called Mayor Koch. Got his ass right out of his bed. The mayor made a couple calls. Next thing I know, I get released. My pops was waiting right there with the caddy. I walked out pretending like I was all cool, but I was so happy I didn't have to close my eyes and sleep with all them niggas in the locker. I almost peed on myself." We all laughed. "Does he really have that kind of clout, your father?" I asked. "Yeah, he's head of the ministers' conference. The mayor always has to come through him to get anything done in the black church or the community. So I guess he just owed my pops one," Chris said easily. "Anyway, the mayor had to do something. His cops clapped a kid, unjustifiable homicide, excessive force," Chris said. I knew he must have heard those phrases getting thrown around last night. Unbelievable. What a break. For real, I said. Me and Amir was all worried about you for nothing. You was out there getting the royal treatment. Nah, that's cool. I appreciate y'all coming up here. That's alright. I always remember how you two looked out, Chris said in a serious tone. But don't think I got over either. My pops is gonna announce my punishment tonight. I just hope he don't go crazy and lock me in his jail for the summer. When the three of us came out of our huddle and turned around, there were about 6 girls waiting on us. Me and Amir didn't know none of them. Chris felt good about this being his territory, quote unquote, and said, "Come on, let me intro y'all to the church chicks." As we walked over, I saw the Reverend approaching from the distance. I elbowed Chris to bring it to his attention. "Young man," the Reverend called to his son. "Yes, Father." Chris tensed up to attention and responded respectfully. "So you have been joined by your friends," he said dryly. "Well, good for them. Where were you fellas last night when Chris needed you?" He glanced over at the girls gathered and waiting for us. "Let's go, gentlemen. Step up into my chambers." We followed silently. The Reverend pronounced to his secretary, "I need some time with my son. Make sure no one disturbs us." My eyes bounced around the wall of his private office. The images were all foreign to me. When you three first met, you were boys. Now, you are young men. There's a difference, you know. Boys play. Young men handle their business, the Reverend lectured, no laughter or doubt in his style. He was seated upright in his big black leather chair. I was listening, but at the same time I was still looking at the wall over his head. Plastered there was his picture of Jesus. I thought to myself that there is not one Muslim out of the 3 billion Muslims in the world who believes he has a picture of God, or that God could ever be captured in a photograph or painting. In a mosque, we don't have images or pictures or snapshots or symbols or idols on our walls or anywhere else for that matter. Muslims acknowledge the great works and life of Jesus. However, we don't believe that Jesus is God or the Son of God. We believe that Jesus was a prophet, a chosen messenger of God, selected as other prophets were selected by God to carry out and perform incredible and extraordinary works and deeds like Moses even. Boys do things because they want to. Boys respond to impulse. Young men do things because they should. They are in the process of setting up to be responsible to carry their weight. Are you young men listening? Are you understanding me? I looked in the mirror. His arm draped around the chair where he was sitting. He was checking the place out same as I was. I knew when we left here he would have something sharp to say about all of this. Chris had his head bowed, listening as though he heard these lessons every day. As you grow older, you have to weigh your decisions. Everything you do means something. Your actions all have a value. When you're doing nothing, you are losing something valuable, either time or money or both. And they are both the same thing. The Reverend was tapping his huge finger on his desktop to emphasize his important words. It's easy for you fellas to lose money because it's not your money directly. It's easy to waste your father's money and your father's time. As a man, it's my job to stop you from wasting money and time, especially my money, my time. Chris is going to be the first to stop. He's not going to be attending the karate class anymore until he can live a responsible life. He's not going to be playing any basketball league until he can demonstrate that he understands what is important and what it takes to earn real money. Chris is going to focus on hitting the books, getting top marks in school, and working for his father. Only by working with his father will he become careful with his father's money. Amir waited for the Reverend to take a breath and jumped right in. Sir, the party we went to last night only cost $5. And when we play ball, we earn our own money. He was trying to counter the Reverend's assumptions. What do you know about money? Do you even have insurance? He asked Amir. When you go to apply for insurance, the insurance agent asks several questions about how you live your life every day. They want to know how big of a fool you are, what types of risks and gambles you take with your own life. It's the only way they can figure out how much risk is involved in doing business with you. Now, you three went to a party, most likely looking for girls in a neighborhood that is not your own, with people who are complete strangers to you. If I was an insurance agent, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that you three rank a 10 as far as fools are concerned, the Reverend said with an angry scowl. Who cares that you paid the $5 entry fee? He barked on Amir. I have invested real money in Chris. $5,000 on his braces. $20,000 a year for his private schooling. And about $15,000 on his martial arts training to date. I've sunk a lot of money into this one son, and as you know, he has a younger brother and sister. He leaned back now in his big chair. Not only is this church a corporation, his life is a corporation, and so is yours, whether you know it or not. I wasn't mad at the Reverend as I listened. I started to enjoy the way he was throwing the numbers around. I like any talk about business, setting it up and earning money, as long as the person talking could get around to the point. Then the Reverend continued. Last night, before I received the call from the police, I was looking through my tax receipts for this year. Counting them up is a big job. I got a couple of crates filled with receipts that have to be sorted out and added up. Every year, every man in business in America has to submit a record of his expenses. Every purchase a man makes matters, has to be documented and reported. Do you know why? The Reverend asked. We three sat there silent. Chris knows why. A real friend doesn't play dumb. Chris, teach these boys what you already know. Share with them what I taught you, he ordered his son. Chris lifted his head and answered, because half of everything a businessman earns in America belongs to the United States government. And every April 15th, that money is due and every businessman has got to pay it. Chris spoke like an automated recording or telephone operator. Now tell them what happens to businessmen who don't collect receipts, keep proper records, and pay the government half their earnings, the Reverend told Chris. They pay fines and interest on their debt and they go to jail, Chris answered. Straight to jail. Do not pass go, like the Monopoly game. The only thing is, real life is not a game, the Reverend emphasized. We three spent the rest of Sunday with pencils in our hand and paper at our table, sorting and counting the Reverend's receipts without the help of a calculator. Chris told us that all of it was just busy work, just the start of a string of punishments. He said his father had 2 expensive accountants and had actually already filed his taxes because April 15th had passed more than a week ago, and his dad never misses deadlines. He also said that churches don't pay taxes like other corporations do, but his father has other businesses and personal expenses to account for. There were thousands of receipts. We were just trying to help Chris out, hoping that if we did a good job, his father would respect us enough to let Chris at least continue in the martial arts. We knew the basketball league was out for Chris. His father did not know that there was a big money prize involved in the game. He did not know it was the Hustlers League. If we told him, we would get the same result. No Chris. Shit's fucked up, I thought to myself. I wish the Reverend and some of his crew had sponsored the league. Then the hustlers wouldn't have to. When the church cooks brought plates of food back for each of us to eat, I kept thinking, this church is a corporation. As I looked at the food plate, I saw a separate price tag hanging over each item in my mind. I felt I needed to leave my money on the table for this meal, even for the 2 glasses of water I drank. The Reverend had convinced me that everything had a price, no matter how small. During our 20-minute food break, I tried to think about what my father would say about the Reverend's words and opinions. My father is a deep thinker and planner and extremely successful in business. When he spoke the truth, it punctured everyone's fantasy bubble. After a while, my father's words came to me, streaming clear-cut across my mind. My father would say,
all men are risks, and all men must take risks. There is no insurance or guarantee. Only Allah can give that. Only Allah can take it away.
My father would have his head pressed to the ground, thanking Allah for granting my narrow escape. We are going to have to pause for the cause because you folks got to tune in to the next edition of Ralph Reads for the next volume. I would like, or rather love, to thank you queens and kings, fellow royalty, for stopping by. You may connect with me via Facebook, send a friend request to Ralph Anthony Garcia on Twitter and Instagram at RGMC2407. Send an email to rgmc2407@gmail.com, where if you'd like to leave a small donation, please use the Zelle app or paypal.me/RGMC2407 or Cash App. My cash tag is RGMC2407. You may also connect with me on my other channel at RGMC2407 and right here on TURN. Tell a friend to tune in to the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Fellow royalty, pick up a good book, read a good story, and set your good self free. I appreciate you and I love you like cooked food. I will see you folks on the continuation of this fabulous Sister Souljah miniseries on the next edition of Ralph Reads. Don't mind too much at what others are doing. Just mind your own business and keep it moving.
If we leave now, it'll look like something is wrong.
Something is wrong. When have you ever known Giselle to be this late for anything?
I mean, it's hair and makeup. You know, maybe they're redoing it. We just can't get crazy, okay? Now I'm gonna go get a drink. Let's calm down.
Lena, this don't feel right.
I'll get you one too.